And we're back for season 2, Words with a Wise Guy, as they would say in Poltergeist. We're back. Yeah. So here with Cole Davis, the head coach at Friends University. He's back once again for the 3rd time out of 8 podcasts. So I guess you're the most popular guy here.
People just are screaming for me to come back.
Yeah, we've had lots of requests through the winter and then the spring and the summer.
The interwebs.
Cole Davis.
There we go.
It's like this SNL cowbell. We
Hot
need more
commodity.
Cal Davis. So one reason we're having Cole back is because, sadly, he will be leaving Wichita before too long.
Yes,
So,
I will.
Do you want to talk about that at all?
Well, it's an exciting new journey. I'm a little nervous, but moving to Denver, Colorado after 8 years at Friends University as the head coach. So the coaching career is kind of up in the air right now. Moving for my girlfriend, got an awesome opportunity out there working for a news station in Denver. So seemed like the right time for a change and searching for a coaching opportunity. But as you know, those don't come up.
So as all the Denver athletic directors in the area,
they're getting bombarded by emails from me right now. The head coaches and ADs and assistant coaches and conference commissioners and anybody I can get a hold of trying to find any opportunity to stay in the coaching field. So,
well, Cole Davis would be an excellent track and field coach for anyone that's looking. I did not get any money to say that.
I don't have any money to
give you. Paid other ways.
That's true.
Years.
That's true.
Well, congratulations on your, move that's getting ready to happen. But what I'd like to talk about is, since you've come to Wichita, what you've done at Friends is incredible. And 8 years, and now, you're going almost here to 8.5 years, I guess.
Right.
So you moved here. What year was it?
I moved to Wichita in the spring of 2011.
Okay. I moved to here in summer of 2006, and there's been a ton of changes in the city of Wichita.
Right.
Like when you think about what I've seen on this campus, but in the city. But you're from Kansas. I'm not. And you competed here at the state track meet in high school. And so you got a recruiting letter from Wichita State, I heard once.
Back in the day.
And,
I think everybody got one.
Yeah, I think so too. I might have sent it to you.
Yeah.
And so what changes in the city of Wichita or even Friends or Wichita State have you seen that since when you came here to now you're leaving, that this is a different place?
Right, and it's when you look at like downtown Wichita, I feel like obviously construction is an issue everybody talks about all the time over the whole city, but just kind of I think there's been an initiative that they've even talked about of bringing more breweries and bringing more stuff to do downtown, and the baseball stadium's been a big thing, and I feel like every old building has been turned into lofts or apartments or something downtown.
And I live in one of those.
And you live in one, yeah. It's
old
school, yeah. So it's good to see Wichita changing because there used to be kind of a negative outlook around downtown, I feel like, with some of the shootings that were happening and things like that. But I feel like there's a much more positive environment in the downtown area now. People are taking their families down there. There's more activities and stuff. So.
Well, and you obviously a big part of your job is recruiting.
Right.
And I'm assuming selling Wichita has gotten easier over the years than it used to be when you first started.
Yeah, and it's something in the last couple of years where we take our recruits downtown and we take them to dinner and we walk around Old Town and we talk about having the NCAA tournament here and things like that they're not going to get going to some of the other smaller schools that we're fighting in the recruiting battles.
Right. I would think in the NAIA, that job that you started 8 years ago, and this is no disrespect to anybody that was there before. I mean, you've elevated that job significantly with the number of athletes, with the level you guys are at. I would think, one, because of how good the program is, but two, the recruiting area of Wichita has made that, for whoever is the next head coach, a really attractive position.
Right, and that's something our department definitely sees as a positive, but at the same time, they've asked my opinion of, hey, when we're interviewing people, or who should we talk to? And I'm like, well, there's a lot of even coaches in our conference or coaches in the state of Kansas that they just think because we're in Wichita, the job's going to be 10 times easier than where they're at.
Right.
But we all know, it doesn't matter where you're at. Recruiting's recruiting, and there's going to be somebody else that can offer more, has better facilities. Or
Yeah.
I consider us recruiting a lot against the Division twos and the small Division ones, and they have a lot of things that are way better than we have. So it's the grass isn't always greener on the other side, but it's obvious that Wichita is a big draw, especially for some of our out-of-state kids that are from Dallas or St. Louis or something like that, that they're more interested to come to a Wichita than a small school in Kansas.
So you're kind of a unique situation right now, which I think question I'm going to ask is unique in that most coaches you find aren't in the situation you're in. Most coaches leave a school because they got another job at another school,
right,
or they got fired.
Right. That didn't happen. By the way.
But you're not leaving for those reasons, but you're still there. You're helping the program. Are you involved in finding the next coach? Like, what is it like? I mean, the term they use is lame duck head coach.
Right.
When a coach, they're going to retire or get fired at a certain point, and they're going to hire somebody else. Not that you're a lame duck. I would.
Right.
Or lame falcon.
Well, I appreciate that. It's been, like you said, not a normal transition, but I felt like the way I've handled it and the way the university's handled it has been very positive, where I have a great relationship with my AD, and he's going to make the ultimate decision, but he also understands what I've done to the program, and he wants the same next level that I wanted. He wanted a team that could compete for a national title. So we've had great conversations of, Cole, give me 3 or 4 people that you think would be good for this, and I want to chat with them. Or what do you think the qualities of our next head coach need to be to elevate the program better than you took it to? And I've given him ideas of, hey, I think this can help this. I think this can help this. And he wants me there as long as I can be there to make it a smooth transition for the next coach that comes in. And I'm already trying to put together as much information as I can so the new coach can come in and see kind of a groundwork of what we've been doing, so that's easy for them to come in and kind of take the program to the next level.
So last part about this, and then we'll move on to some more significant things in your career.
I appreciate that.
So wrap up in a bow. Like, what are your most significant memories, or what are things that you'll look back in 10 years and go, man, I was proud of what happened here, or this specific moment at Friends was something I'll remember and cherish? Like, what are some things like that you remember about coaching at Friends?
Yeah, we had a lot of success at the conference level. That's something we put 90% of our effort into, is trying to win a conference title. And we had the opportunity to do that a lot, which that's how we recruit. Is if we weren't winning, I would have been bad at my job, is kind of what I like to say. But at the same time, the things that really stand out, I mean, when I first started there, we weren't really known on a national scene at all. We were pretty good at the conference meet. We'd won 2 or 3 conference titles in school history, but I wanted to get a trophy at the national meet. And I put that on a piece of paper. I put it on my office door, and I said, I want to accomplish this in the next 4 years. And we went from 0 points at the national meet to 56 and got 4th place and got the first trophy in school history. So that one pops out like huge, just everything kind of aligned in the same year. And we had a really good senior class that contributed like 75% of our points, that were Kansas kids that just gradually got better. And that's what I always, when you go to the national meet, and you see this at every level, that you see these international kids that are kind of running the show in a lot of events. And for us, we see that at the NAIA level a lot because we don't have age restrictions. So there's 28-year-olds from Jamaica that are coming there because they're eligible and they can compete. And there's teams that get trophies and win titles that way. But we knew when we got there, we had 12 girls from a 3-state area that had just gradually gotten better over 4 years. And I had a lot of personal gratification there that I felt like we did things the right way with local kids, and that made it mean a lot more, I guess.
Well, you certainly did a great job, and whoever is the next head coach has some huge shoes to fill.
Size 12s.
And obviously, one of those shoes will be socializing with me every weekend, so we'll have to figure out who that. That's a big part of who your AD hires. Please make sure that happens.
Can we get John Wise on the interview process?
I need to be on that search committee.
Right, you probably should be.
So there's been so much that has happened in the past. I don't know, since we last podcast, which is maybe 9 months or 8 months ago. 2019 was a big year. So let's real quick recap. What happened at Friends last year? You in 2018 was kind of like your banner year where you
Right.
guys got fourth at the national meet. You guys did so many awesome things.
Mhm.
2019, the sequel is never as good as the original,
Right.
but it was a pretty darn good sequel.
Yeah.
Right. 2019.
Yeah, it was going to be really hard to top our 2018, and that was one of those like, oh man, how are we going to do anything better than we just did type of thing with how many people we had graduated, and there were a bunch of seniors, but we still won conference titles on the girl side, indoor and outdoor. Our guys were runner-ups at both meets. I think we sent 35 people to nationals. We had All-Americans. We broke like 7 school records last year, so it wasn't a down year,
Right.
but after the year before, it's like, oh, we broke 30 school records and got a trophy and did all these things. So
Yeah.
it was a change almost mentally, but we've been going through a transition of our girls team has been really, really, really good the last couple of years, and our guys have been kind of behind them a little bit. And it's been a personal vendetta of mine to bring the guys up to the
Right.
same level the girls were at. And I've seen that happen the last couple of years, that they're getting closer and closer and closer. And I feel like this year it's pretty much dead even, which I won't get to see what happens. But
Well, I'm sure
I'll get to see
following
what
close.
happens, but it'll be tough not to be with some of those athletes that I've seen kind of grow and grow the last couple of years. But 2019 was fun.
Yeah, we had a big year too. We started
okay.
last year, huh?
It was okay.
It was all right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think last year on the podcast, we had it in the midst of the cross country season, and
Right.
our women won the cross country title, and that was exciting. And then throughout the track season, we had this big red shirt plan
Right.
that happened in the darkness of our offices on a piece of paper, and we're like coming up like, wow, I think we're going to redshirt all these girls and just not throw away, but really sacrifice the 2018 season.
Mm-hmm.
And our plan was to build a team that would be competitive for years to come. And it happened the first year after
Right.
our redshirt. We ended up winning the conference.
That was
meet.
your plan, right?
That's good to say right now.
Right.
But we were hoping to be just one of the top teams. In indoor, we got third on the women. We lost by like 14 points, so we knew like we probably better outdoor than we are indoor. And then hosting the conference meet was a big deal. And
Do you believe in hosting, giving a point boost to your team?
Definitely. I definitely think that helps. And we got a boost from that. And we probably needed it a little bit. And so a really interesting tale of two teams. Our women, as everybody follows our team knows, we won that title, and almost we won it going away.
Right.
And that was exciting, and that was vindication of what we had been working on, and a tribute to a really young group of girls. I think we graduated like 13 out of 125 points or something.
Right.
So we hope that now our plan is we're a team to beat. But one of the most interesting things is what happened on our men's side.
Right.
And I know that you were around a little bit,
mm-hmm.
and all respect to Houston Cougars and Leroy Burrell and Carl Lewis and the staff down there. And with a couple events to go, we had them on the ropes.
Right.
And it was interesting because, in a track meet, as a general fan that are in the stands watching outrageous performances, it's like, that's awesome. There's a guy who ran 9.9 in the 100.
Right.
There's, incredible performances all around. But as coaches, we're looking at that point total, and I know you are aware of this, and there's really a few people that know exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
And the point scoring, the live scoring versus the projected scoring is always, because how many people are in the finals. So shout out to WSU TV, because they were actually the ones that got hired to broadcast this,
Right.
and they were on top of it, and the announcers knew what was going on. And we had known we got projected points coming, and even though we might have been behind or whatever, we were going to, I think making a meet. And going into the last day, I think we were 30 points down. A couple of things happened. We had a big discus throw. And I'm about middle of the Sunday, and I'm sitting there next to Bolt with my piece of paper, and I'm Coach Rainbolt, our head track coach, Bolt. And I'm like, Bolt, I think this is going to get really interesting on the men's side. I think our women are going to win, and I think this is going to get really interesting. And our discus held up. We had a good hurdle race, and then all of a sudden, going into the 5K, we're down by 1 point. Like, it's a 1 point meet.
Right.
They get 1 point, we get 0. Now it's 2-point meet. So literally it comes down to the 4x4. They've got the number 1 team in the nation.
Right.
But like 2 or 3 of their guys have gotten hurt. So now they're down to their B squad.
Right.
We've got all of our guys ready, and our guy pulls a hamstring, and, we aren't able to finish. So
Right.
it was exciting. And I think even though we lost that meet, we got a lot of respect. And I know that after the meet, Houston, they had not been challenged like that. And so I think that was vindication of our program and what we do, how we do things, how you guys do things in terms of, building towards a championship level. And so it was super exciting to be part of, and a great way to kind of like wrap up our introduction into the conference, into the new conference.
So people know who Wichita State is in the American.
At least in our
track and
conference, I
field.
think people know that. How many people understand that whole process?
Right.
But, I think that that's valuable. Our kids, I think, got it. And now, as we're recruiting, I will say this. As we're out there recruiting, there are kids that are aware of what happened. There was so many people watched that meet. You can talk to the WSUTV guys. 100,000 people watched that meet online or something like it. It was an insane number. And there's kids that are aware of what happened at that meet, and they say, well, we want to come help you win that meet next year.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's fun. So as you're leaving Friends, what's this year look like? As if there's a lot of Friends track and field fans watching this, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And I know that there's a big cross country meet coming up. What's coming up in the coming months?
Yeah, we, like alphabetical order, are hosting the conference championships this year for cross country. So we've never done that since I've been there. So that's something we're excited about. We're using the course Wichita State uses, so we're comfortable with that course out at the kind of the J.K. Gold 4 Mile Creek Resort. So we were just out there yesterday kind of checking out the course and getting things set up for a 5K and 8K. But our cross-country teams are doing awesome this year. Our girls are ranked number 1 in the conference. Our guys are ranked number 2 in the conference. So top 2 in our conference get berths to nationals. So we're trying to get both teams to nationals for the first time since, I think, 2013. So we're trying to host and get that energy and get both teams to nationals. So that's kind of my last hurrah here at Friends. It's my last week that I'm currently supposed to be employed at Friends will be us hosting the conference meet. So I'll be helping Coach Parr run off a good show, hopefully, is the plan.
Awesome. And then track team looks good as we head into the track season.
We have our biggest roster we've ever had. We'll have close to 100 athletes. I think we're about 95 right now on the roster, and we usually grab a couple kids off the football team, so we should be right around 100. But excited for the indoor season. I'm trying to do as much of the behind-the-scenes work as I can, so the new
Get
coach
the trips
can come
planned
in.
and all that stuff.
Yeah, and get our buses booked and our schedule set, and the new coach can come in and change whatever he wants. But
Right.
I want to at least have a general foundation of what's going on.
In a school like Friends, having a big team is important.
Yeah, and that's something I realized my first couple of years. I was awful at recruiting when I first started. I think I signed 3 kids my first year, and all of them left after 1 year. So it was something that took me 3 or 4 years to figure out how to sell Friends and how to sell myself. But when you look at the conference meet, and I'm like, okay, there's 2 or 3 kids that are pretty good in each event, and then you're kind of fighting for those bottom points, and then there's a lot of bad kids. So I looked and I found the events, and I was like, hey, these are weak. We need 10 hurdlers. We need long jumpers. We need pole vaulters, because I knew we could sneak events from some of these other programs that weren't recruiting some of those events, or they weren't as one of the top events in the conference. So we're like, hey, if we can put 6 kids in every single event, that's our conference rule. So for me, I'm like, let's have 6 at every event if we can, but we didn't want to stretch kids too thin and just figure out where we can score the most points. But if you look traditionally, the teams that have had the largest rosters have been at the top of the conference. So,
and what percentage of the enrollment is track and field?
Well, I think right now, like our last numbers were right around upper 700s, low 800s total undergrad students. So 1/7 of the school.
Yeah. So track is a hugely important thing at small schools across America.
Tuition. That's why.
Yeah.
That's why I have a job. Try to bring in tuition revenue
Yeah. So you're kind of
and win championships.
slash fundraiser
Yeah.
track coach. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, in Wichita State, the cross country teams are trying to repeat. On the women's side, our men are good. Tulsa is one of those schools that focus on distance running, so that's a tough thing to beat in cross country for Coach Hunter. But we've got a really good team. We're excited.
I feel like your women should be really good.
You hope. I mean, they're not as deep as the men. The men have like 10 guys that who knows who's the best guy. And I think, we were at JK Gold, and we had a guy win that had never won a race before, and all of a sudden he's like our best guy, and you never knew who that was until that happened. And but the girls, there's 5 or 6, and then, so injuries could play a part. You got to stay healthy. So Coach Hunter's doing a great job of putting that together. So we're excited. The difference is just I think that Wichita State has a little more of a target on their back this year within the conference. So we got to have a different mentality and going in as with confidence instead of being the underdog a little bit. I think the same thing will happen in track. So on the men's side, we're probably still underdogs, but I think they're going to be not sleeping on us. They're going to be aware. One of the teams they talk about. It's not
going to be a surprise on the last day. With the 2-point meet.
Yeah, last year I think Coach Hunter in the cross country. In the preview there was like a video that comes out at the conference level, and they didn't even mention Wichita State as a team in the running, and then they won it, and so that was like a chip on the shoulder. That won't happen anymore. So it'll be kind of exciting. So staying on the track and field geek tip kind of thing, like World Championships just happened. A lot of things I think to talk about. We could talk about a whole podcast about what happened at the World Championships. But what were some of your things that you took away that you watch? I know as a coach it's a little different than when you're in college as an athlete, but were there some things that happened that were like, man, that was interesting?
Yeah, I mean, I could watch a junior high track meet and get excited about stuff, but when you think about the World Championships, I mean, you're looking at Olympic records and world records and all these amazing things happening. But I think it was awesome for some of the events like the men's shot put to get so much love, which probably one of the best men's shot put competitions of all time.
Let's recap that real quick.
Yeah.
So for those of you that weren't watching, there was a guy from New Zealand. Shout out to New Zealand.
You were there.
Who I don't even know his name, but he was a really big guy.
Yeah.
And he threw like within 20 centimeters of the world record on his first throw. Then he is leading the whole way. There's a couple Americans in there, Krauser and Kovacs, and it's starting to become a Krauser threw one up there, but he wasn't near as close. And then Kovacs, who was like in 5th or 6th, in his final throw. So the leader was at 22 meters 90. How far was that?
75.
Something far, really far. And then Kovacs on his last throw throws 22.91, 1 centimeter. And then Krauser comes back, who's at like 22.50 and throws 22.90.
Right.
So all 3 guys are within 1 centimeter as they're
medal
throwing like 74, 75 feet.
They said the guy that got 4th would have won every Olympics and World Championships previous to that.
Here's Joe Kovacs. For those of you that are watching, this Joe Kovacs, this is his winning throw. For those of you just listening on iTunes, like tune in
Look
YouTube
it up
if you want to see this. So he was like in 5th place or something like that. Boom!
75 feet.
And yeah, incredible. And he beat about 1 centimeter. Like, what's the chances they measured that
That's how
wrong?
they measure. It's like, what is a shot put? Probably like
16 pounds.
8 centimeters wide, though, or like where it hits the ground. Like, where do they stick it?
1 centimeter.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got to check.
The guy that got 3rd could have won.
You check their credentials and make sure they got it.
Right, it's like some 82-year-old guy. You know how old the officials are getting. Like, he can't see where the shot's at.
Oh, man, yeah. All right, so that was big. And I think I think that got shown a little bit, but the dramatic, story of field events always don't get told. And I was watching it live on like an international feed, so I could see exactly what was happening. Me and Coach Hetzendorf, our throws coach, were texting back and forth like, holy, this is the most amazing competition we've ever seen. Maybe the most amazing field event competition in the history of track and field.
Correct.
Carl Lewis, Mike Powell, when he broke the world, that was up there too. But that was awesome. What else do you take away?
That stood out to me. I love seeing, especially on the guys' side, I mean, us winning the 100, winning the 200, and
The relays.
The relays was huge. We've had some
800,
mistakes
won
in
the
the
800.
4x1, Brazier in the 800. So it's like if somebody would have won the 400, we would have won every event like
Right.
800 and under. So it's
And our best 400 guy didn't
Yeah.
get through the final.
it's like people were kind of surprised about Norman pulling
Mhm.
up. He said he didn't like something, but something that I kind of saw a lot of people probably didn't really see, but in about 15 minutes in the men's decathlon, the top 3 guys all made giant mistakes or got
Yeah.
hurt. And I was following Kevin Meyer. He set the world record, and he gets hurt. And then another guy fouls all 3 in the discus, who was like a favorite. And then there was just like a small period where, oh, now anybody can win this pretty much. And some guy comes up that I hadn't really even heard of and wins a gold medal. So I'm a multi guy, so I always kind of follow along with that.
And the women's half was crazy. That was a heck of a competition. So there's so many performances. I mean, there was a world record in the 400 hurdles, and and the favorite, Sydney McLaughlin almost broke the world record and got beat.
Was she the favorite?
Well, here's what I say.
I mean, the girl set the world record.
When I say favorite, she was like the popular choice. Like, I think people were rooting for her because they've been watching her since high school.
Yeah.
Muhammad
I feel sorry for Muhammad. She just broke her own world record.
Yep.
And one of the first questions they asked her was about Sydney McLaughlin. I'm like, give the girl some credit. Like,
yeah. So it is, that's interesting because I think the McLaughlin, they're kind of trying to push towards the Olympics like Allison Felix or Usain Bolt, like she's the next big star, but then she got beat. So that makes it interesting. I think there's a lot of really good athletes. One of the things I talked about is what will the sport do without Usain Bolt?
I think we're doing okay.
All of a sudden, here's Christian Coleman, and there's Noah Lyles, and there's the 400 hurdle, and so the sport's all right. But should they have gone to Doha, Qatar?
No.
And why?
I mean, I just feel like there was multiple days that the crowd was very empty.
It's interesting. After that came out in the media, all of a sudden it was sold out like the next 4 days.
Right.
It was like they were recruiting
Power
people.
of the media.
Exactly.
Right. Hey, that's why I'm moving.
Did you see the marathon? What happened in the women's
I had heard about it. I know it was just like deathly hot, and they're running in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah.
They finished at like 3 a.m.
Hey, they probably were happy. I mean, they don't want to run when it's
I don't think they were happy.
15 degrees.
No, it was still 100 degrees.
I know, but what would it have been in the middle of the afternoon?
Yeah, 180 degrees.
Exactly. Would have died.
I think a few might have.
Which, it's interesting. I mean, kind of tail off that a little bit, but we have the marathon at the NAI National Meet.
Yeah.
And we're the only division that has it. And last year, it's been a reoccurring problem over the last 5 or 6 years that 70 or 80 people qualify. They'll go and run, and 35 finish. People are dropping out, and they're falling over. They're getting dehydrated, and they have all this stuff. And they kind of got fed up with it this last year and decided to postpone the marathon at the national meet until a standards committee could get together and talk about how they could fix it. So we're kind of in the middle of a...
Why don't they do the half marathon instead? It's
a conversation.
Still way longer
that
than
was
anybody.
Part of the conversation is, hey, do we do a half marathon? But we just got an email the other day that it had been postponed for the last 2 months, and they had people meeting about it. And now athletes have to submit a running log leading up to the national championship meet to prove that they've been running the miles. And it has to be signed by like your coach, your athletic trainer, and all this stuff. Anybody that runs the marathon at nationals has to go through like a marathon training online course about hydration and mileage and all this kind of stuff. And they have to have some type of tapering period that's like 20 days out. And it all has to be documented, or you can't run it at the national meet. Because they had a bunch of people, because you can qualify for our marathon in the fall. So most of our guys run cross country all the way through. Then they run a half marathon and qualify for outdoor nationals. But then they train for the 5K and the 10K, but then they don't qualify in that. So they go run a marathon, but they're not.
I vote for a half marathon.
Right. They're not ready for it, and they go there and they drop out because we're in Gulf Shores, Alabama. And it's 90 degrees and 80% humidity. And
it's insane.
It's been interesting.
So one other thing about the Worlds. In the middle of the Worlds, Alberto Salazar gets suspended for 4 years as coach. For those of you who don't know, Alberto Salazar, who was a great runner, is now a coach of the greatest distance runners in the world.
NOP.
Yeah, Oregon Project. And there's been controversy surrounding his group. And then in the middle of the meet, when his athletes are competing, he gets banned for 4 years.
I think the timing is interesting.
Yeah. Why do you think that happened? Is it just a coincidence?
Try to get track some publicity.
Think so? Yeah.
I mean, the biggest thing in track and field is happening at that moment. I mean,
Right.
let's cause a stir. But it was interesting, like the Jenny Simpson, Craig Engels.
Yeah.
They're getting interviewed about it, and they're talking crap on each other pretty much. And
well,
it's
excuse me. And I know that Kellen Taylor, who ran here, and she's a real. I mean, she's one of the best marathoners in the world now. Excuse me. She, without saying anybody's name, made a long post on Instagram, and it got thousands of likes. And so obviously within the distance world, we're not distance people, but within the distance world, this has been something that's, I'm sure, been talked about over beers at a bar late at night. Yeah, we should. If he had a microphone today, we could get his opinion, but yeah, no, unfortunately we don't. But yeah, is when these things happen, or when there's Kellen right there if you're on, you can see the Instagram posts. She's pretty fun to follow on there. But as you're a track and field person, do things like this with Salazar, when Christian Coleman missed some drug tests and then he's like, trying to defend himself, then that's kind of what people are talking about. Is that good or is that bad? I mean, obviously it's bad, but are there people now that are more interested in track, just like when there's controversy in the NFL over somebody, or baseball with some sort of controversial player? Does that draw attention, or is that good or bad?
I think it's kind of a double-edged sword, that any publicity is good publicity type of thing, but at the same time, I don't want the sport to turn into everybody. You hear everybody's doping. Everybody's doping. Everybody's doing this. Everybody's doing something on the edge of being illegal to try to get the best out of themselves type of thing. And the way our society works, everybody wants to see people getting faster and faster and faster and faster. And it's like one of these days, I feel like they're just going to cut it loose and be like, do whatever you want. We want you to be as fast as possible.
All drug Olympics.
I mean, I feel like it's not out of the question in the future.
There was a great Saturday Night Live skit. Did you ever see that? It was the All Drug Olympics, and it was a guy doing weightlifting.
Really?
And I don't know if they can find that. It's great. He does like a power clean, and his arms just ripped right off his shoulders. and the announcer's like, he's going to feel that one in the morning.
Right. That's good.
So that's we'll probably find. Oh, I think we might have it coming up. Yeah, the All Drug.
Oh, that's
classic
right
SNL.
there.
So, I mean, it would be interesting to see. Yeah, here you go. Kevin Nealon.
There's just blood squirting out of his arms.
Sorry for the people that are just listening, but Phil Hartman. Yeah. Shout out to Phil right there. Here goes his hankling.
I have seen that.
That's the future of our sport.
I think so. How do you feel?
Oh, I'm an innocent till proven guilty person in all walks of life. So I want to believe that the people are not lying. I know that that's naive to say that.
Right.
The only reason I say that is because when I was in college as an athlete and as a coach, I've seen athletes who I know were clean do incredible things.
Right.
And people would probably accuse them of being on drugs. But I just, when I was in college, I had a teammate that did some stuff in practice, and no one ever saw it. And I just was like blown away that was even possible. And I know there's people more talented than that.
Right.
You know what I mean? This was a really good Division I sprinter. Now there's guys way more talented than that. And I know in the distance world, you get around somebody like Alfine Tuliamuk, who was on our team, who has a drive that is, unparalleled, and how tough she is, and accomplish things that, that would be, hard to imagine or fathom, but mostly because of their mentality and not because of something they do. Now, yeah, there's people cheating in everything. There's people cheating in the playoffs of baseball right now. But the thing about track that I will say is they're trying the hardest to catch the people, and they have the toughest penalties for when they get caught. I mean, how often does a manager of a baseball team get banned for 4 years?
Right.
Sean Payton in the NFL got a 1-year suspension. That was like every time it's ever happened.
Huge too.
And in track, you do something bad, it's 4 years. And the stuff their technology they're using, so I feel like that's the problem, that people don't understand that track is is trying as hard as they can to clean that up. So
Right.
So anyways, that's always
I mean, yeah, we have people getting drug tested at NAI nationals. Like they're trying to catch people at every level. So
yeah. So all right, switching topics. So this week we had a little fundraiser, a little sidebar that's kind of a fun thing Coach Rainbolt does every year. He golfs the number of holes he is old. And he's turning 62 years old, and I guess he doesn't mind people knowing that.
it's a lot of golf.
Because he played 62 holes of golf, and that's walking 62
Hey, look
holes.
at that guy up there.
Missed that putt. So the funny thing is he had a goal of like 297 shots.
Right.
And it came down to like the last hole to get. It is hilarious.
That's crazy.
All those shots, and he just missed it, I think. But he was might
But
have
I
had
mean,
some.
for me, I mean, Bolt's not a small guy.
No.
He
not
is
at
a
all.
large individual. All credit to Bolt. You're a good-looking guy, Bolt. But the fact that he's starting at sunrise and going to sundown. It was like 40-some
11 hours.
thousand steps.
Yeah, 11
Like
hours.
that's.
So his conversation has
He's
been
not
like
just out there playing golf. That is an athletic feat for somebody like that's his size to do that. That's
so
tough.
next year.
Knee surgeries and all.
Yeah, 2.
Yeah.
And next year he'll have 3 rounds of golf and 9 holes. That's 63. And his question has always been, how many can I go?
Right.
You know, until I can't.
What's the world record?
I don't know. There's people that do it and run. Like they still get 100 holes in a day. So I don't. But it's something probably crazy. But they're not, you know, hitting legitimate golf. Like he's playing legitimate golf every hole, and he's trying to hit a score.
Like
people that do it
don't
don't care about the score.
I think I did some math, and he was like under 5 average, like per hole.
Yeah,
like 4.7 or something like that. So it's like
he shot in the 80s for every round.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty good. So, anyways, shout out to Coach Rainbolt. That was impressive. So
good job, Bolt.
So one thing that we both have done since the last podcast, we've gone outside the country of the United States.
We have.
And you've done it multiple times. And I did it once, but I went to multiple places. So where'd you go? What'd you do?
What I do? So, yeah, I first off want to give credit to John Wise for kind of getting the travel bug into me.
Yeah.
Just being friends with you, I got so jealous of the trips you were doing all the time. I was like, you got to keep up with the Joneses, you know, I got to keep up with the Wises.
That's right.
So, yeah, me and Rachel just made a decision that we wanted to take a domestic trip and an international trip every year just to continue doing that and get excited about it and plan it and all that kind of stuff. So she had a friend that was turning 30 and asked us if we wanted to go on a group cruise to Cuba. And we're like, awesome. That could be one of our trips out of the country. So we flew to Miami, and then we did a cruise to Cuba, and then we went to the Bahamas, and then we came back.
So let's talk about Cuba.
Yeah.
So what was Cuba like? Because I've never been there, and I think most people haven't been there.
Right.
Like, what was Cuba like?
It was, so we took a tour, like a walking tour of the downtown area. Hey, so, and we also took a car tour, which that's what
And they
Cuba's
had all these old cars there.
kind of famous for, is having all these old cars, which we found out is the government does not allow the sale of any vehicle that was built after like 1959. So it's like the only way you can own a vehicle there. All the cabs, all the vehicles, they're all these old cars. So, but we were downtown walking around, all this awesome architecture, all this like kind of Spanish looking architecture all over the place, and it's pretty nice. And then we get in the cars and we drive 5 minutes outside of downtown, and it's broken down. It's very different. So
Tourists versus non.
The tourists versus the non-tourists, and it was good we did that car tour that kind of took us around the outside to see some of that. We're like, wow. And our tour guides were awesome, and we were asking tons of questions that were more kind of educational questions, and hey, what's your education system like? And like, oh, college is free, but like that's the only way you can get a good job is if you go to college. And the healthcare system, we're asking them questions, and the food supply, you go to the bodega and your family, however many people you have, get this much free food every month, and just lots of different stuff about that. But it was just interesting to get outside of the touristy areas, and we didn't spend a lot of time out there unsupervised, but it was one of those things where like, wow, this looks like almost post-apocalyptic, like stone buildings falling down and nobody living in them and stuff like that. So it was interesting.
You barely got off the island, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was just an interesting thing where we did this big tour, and then it was during the day, and then we went back on the boat for dinner, and we weren't leaving Cuba until the following morning at like 6 a.m. So people could go back that night and do night stuff. So night stuff.
Night stuff.
But we go back on the boat and we eat dinner, and they get on the intercom. It's like, attention all passengers. President Trump has just signed a blah, 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 and nobody is allowed to go back on the island. We're like, what? Like, we're all confused, but
Yeah.
no, that's something that probably could happen. And we're just kind of hanging out. We're like, there's still people out there that
Yeah.
are doing stuff, and they're trying to get them back
Did
on the
anyone
boat.
get left in Cuba?
Not that I know of.
Surely somebody didn't make it back.
Right. But 5 minutes later, they get back on the intercom, and they're like, actually, you guys can go back out.
Oh.
Like, if you had booked a trip before a certain date, you could continue to travel within that trip. So we're leaving the next day, and our cruise ship was on the news, and it was like the last cruise ship to like go into Cuba and leave. And my dad sends me an email, and he's like, our trip to Cuba just got canceled. Like, they sent us an email. They had one booked for like 2 months after we were there. So it was kind of an interesting story just to understand kind of the power of a president, I guess. There a little bit of, he wasn't happy about some money going to a certain person and didn't want people's tourist money going there. So he's like, hey, nobody else can go. So
Well,
you
Trump
can't go to
doesn't-
Cuba right now.
Trump never does anything like that gets in the news,
Controversial,
so I'm
right.
surprised that.
Right.
And so then you did an insane drive.
Yeah.
After that.
Then we did a big road trip. So we were back for a couple weeks, and then Rachel had been to Canada before when she was little, and she wanted to go back to Banff. That was kind of the one place she really wanted to go, is Banff National Park. So we did a big kind of road trip where we left Kansas. We drove to Glacier National Park in Montana, spent a couple days in Glacier, which was amazing. I recommend that for anybody to go check that out. And then from Montana, we drove up into Canada, went to to Banff National Park, Yoho National Park. We went to a wolf dog sanctuary up there. It was just, we try to find some interesting stuff to do along the way. And he's showing some photos of a Oklahoma road trip that we did there too. So we had some fun this summer.
Yeah.
Canada was very easy
I've
to
never
get
been
into.
there. I've been to Canada, but I've never been to where you went, so I need to do that.
And it's, the Rocky Mountains there's just a lot more of them. So you go, like, you're in Colorado and you see some mountains, and it's cool, but like, you're up there and it's just 14,000-foot mountains as far as you can see.
Right.
Like, it's just amazing. So we're outdoorsy. We like hiking. We like doing all that kind of stuff. So we went little over 4,000 miles in about 9 days, 9.5 days. So it was,
Nice. That's crazy.
it was an awesome trip. We're already trying to figure out what we want to do in the next
That's
one,
the great
so.
thing about living in Kansas. You can go and you can do road trips like, that if you take your time,
Right.
some amazing places.
And that's what a lot of the places we like to go are kind of west a little bit. So the fact that we're moving to Denver, we're 7 hours closer to do all these things, because we like to go to California and go up Highway 1 and do the coast in Yosemite and Oregon and stuff. So we're closer to do that some stuff, Lake Tahoe, and see some stuff like that we haven't seen.
I was on 15 airplanes on my trip this summer.
Talk about your trip a little bit.
South America. So, people want to do Machu Picchu. That's always something in Peru. People want to see.
I know you hate the touristy stuff, though. I was
but I was like, I probably should do that. And so in South America, I decided to go Machu Picchu, Easter Island, and then the Bolivian salt flats since I'm there. Basically, I'm in South America. Might as well.
Most people have probably never heard of that.
It's like going out to Liberal, then stopping in Goddard on the way home. You know what I mean? But that was Easter Island right there. That was one of the most remote places in the world. It's a 5-hour flight from the closest land.
So tell us, how did the heads get there?
I don't know. There's a movie.
You go all the way there and you didn't ask the question.
I probably should ask. But no, they think that it's something that they put out there it's a religious, spiritual thing to protect the people from the intruders coming. So the statues are facing in to the people,
right,
to protect them, and
Gotcha.
so that's interesting. That's the salt flats. It's the largest salt flats in the world in Bolivia.
Did you set a land speed record while you were there?
We were going as fast as you could go in a 4x4. And the problem, my only recommendation if you go to South America is like get used to the altitude. that was tough. We got
Don't
up to
sleep in
16,000
a
feet.
hotel that's
Oh
20
yeah,
degrees.
slept in. I froze to death almost. I was in 6 layers of clothing and like 5 layers of, and there's no heat.
Yeah, what was the
So
altitude?
got up to like 16,000 feet at one point.
Did you
And
get altitude sickness?
yes, I did. I certainly did. And
Did you take anything?
I tried, but it was probably too late.
Yeah.
I hung in there. I got through it, but I was struggling the last couple days. And I've been to Colorado and done plenty of stuff there. But when you're trying to hike at those
And you're
altitudes,
starting at 16,000 feet.
yeah, you're going from 14 to 16.
Right.
It's difficult. So the guys that do like Kilimanjaro and stuff, go up to 20-some thousand feet. I can't imagine. I would probably not. After my trip, I would never do that.
I would get sick.
Yeah. So, but South America was crazy because I never saw an American the entire time I was there. When
Really?
I got to Bolivia, and I showed them my what do you call it, the tourist visa, they looked at me like, oh, there's an American. They haven't seen one of these in a while, and most people don't speak English, and so I didn't speak
Were they
Spanish.
excited to see you? Were they scared?
Not, if I was going to give them
Did
money
you make them
for any
nervous?
reason, they were pretty excited. Other
Right.
than that, it was like
What
either
was
way, it wasn't bad or
what
good.
was some of like the money situations down there? Were things
Everything was really cheap.
really cheap?
Yeah, you could eat an entire giant meal for $5, $6, and you could stay in Airbnbs for $15.
Wow.
Stuff like that. Now the
Wichita.
trips
We
was-
need to start.
the trips were expensive to fly there.
Right.
To go to Machu Picchu was expensive.
I bet you had some really nice airports and airplanes that you were flying on.
Yes and no. There were places that
Sketchiest plane that you were on. Describe that experience.
from La Paz, Bolivia to Uni, Bolivia, where the salt flats were. I think it sat like 14 people on the plane or 12. And
Did they have
propellers.
a movie on the flight?
No, it was just hopefully we land this thing.
Right.
So, but yeah, it was fun. But I'm excited. I don't know where I'm going next. Where are you going next?
Well, we definitely want to do California.
Okay. Yeah, you mentioned that.
We want to do Yosemite and Lake Powell, and
I've done that.
you've
It's
done
highly
that.
recommended. Yeah.
And Rachel found some stuff called the Lost Coast up in Oregon, so she kind of wants to go that direction and go up there. So
Oregon's beautiful.
that's probably the next domestic trip. International, I think we're going to have a big one next. I think she really wants to see the Alps, and she really wants to see Greece.
I
So
think you should plan Oregon late June, early July.
late June.
There's
early
a
July.
little bit of a track meet going on there in 2020.
I'll meet up with you.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
hopefully I'll be there.
Right.
So, all right, we're gonna wrap up with. We always last year finished with some movies, and it's
Right.
always about me and about like what I've been watching.
You're the movie guy.
But we're gonna, since it's we're both track coaches, we thought we'd come up with our top 5 track and field movies of all time. And interesting, we all each have different 5 movies here. And,
That is
so.
interesting.
So let's start with your number 5,
So my number 5 is Race. So
Jesse Owens.
the Jesse Owens story. I think I always like that there's a story behind the movie. And that's, I think, sometimes the tough things to do with track and field, and you don't see a track movie come out very often. But
Right.
the fact that they went back and told this, and I felt like the cinematography was pretty awesome in some of the track scenes. And
Yeah.
we won't talk about his block start form or anything like that. But
I didn't think his long jumping was.
his
particularly
long jumping
impressive
wasn't great
the
either.
actor.
Um,
It shows it's hard for, like, you can. I think there's like Kevin Costner playing baseball, or there's been
Right.
some guys like Jamie Foxx playing football, and those guys look like players, but track that's hard
That's
to.
tough to do.
Yeah, that is hard to find.
And
somebody
the
to do it.
events are technical. So
Yes, right.
I've always wanted to know, did they have a track coach like that they were paying to
I'm
like help
assuming.
with the actor?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because
Surely they.
that guy need to be fired.
Yeah.
That's one of those things. But yeah, that's my
That
my
was
number
like
five.
probably the latest big budget
Yeah.
movie about track,
Mhm.
and I think that was that was a story that needed to be told,
Right.
and just kind of like 42 with Jackie
Mhm.
Robinson, like those had to be told.
Absolutely.
So my number 5 is more kind of some local flavor, a movie called Running Brave, about Billy Mills, who was
Billy
the
Mills.
68 Olympic or 64, I think, 10K gold medalist in the Olympics, and he was an Indian. He went to KU
Mhm.
and had a up and down relationship with KU, and his running coach he quit, and all
Right.
that, different things. He ended up unbelievable story. If people don't know, and you can watch the race on YouTube, and it's so exciting. And they did a good job in the movie of the climactic scene where he went through the 5K faster than his 5K PR, and people thought he's gonna
die.
Yeah, and he just kind of hung on. He was a real spiritual guy, and his kick in the last 100 meters is legendary.
Yeah,
You know, I don't know if we can find that video clip of Billy Mills running the last 100 meters. That's
look
our
about like
guys
John
are
Wise,
upper
running 100
level
meters.
YouTube searchers over here, but
That's true.
But so he wrote a book, and an uncle of mine went to a speech he gave, and he wrote a book, and he had it signed to me. So I had a book autographed to me, like "Follow Your Dreams" or whatever by Billy Mills, and I let somebody borrow it, and I never got it back. So if anybody's listening,
that's not a book that you let somebody borrow.
Well, it was a great book. It was an inspirational book.
That's true.
So,
I still have Meat Market, by the way. I need to get that back.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. They didn't autograph that one, though.
Nope.
So there's some footage of the 64, and that's them coming down the finish. I think that's the movie.
Is it?
Yeah. So that's Robbie Benson playing Billy
is.
Mills. So they did a good job with that. So Running Brave, number 5. All right, number 4. A lot of people might not know this one.
Across the Tracks.
Tell us about Across the Tracks.
Well, I probably haven't seen it in about 10 years, but I just remember, what is Brad Pitt doing in this track movie? He was all scrawny.
He had to be like a teenager.
Right. And it had to have been like really early in his career, but it's one of those movies where he's trying to get a scholarship, and there's drama because his brother's in trouble with the law and comes back home and getting in fights and getting him in trouble. But
it's from the other side of the tracks.
Right.
Across the
tracks, hence the name. But I just love seeing these like big name actors back in the day.
Was that a TV movie, or was that I wonder if that was like a TV movie. Sometimes they'd make those after school.
It seems a little TV movie-ish, but
I think I'm gonna have to check that out.
There's some good running scenes in that one where he falls over and is very upset. So
yeah, awesome. All right, Across the Tracks.
Across the Tracks.
My number 4 is Fast Girls, and this one's cheesy.
I like this movie. Whoever came up with the name,
well,
I just
I don't
like
it was a British movie. So
they wanted to beat America. That's
correct.
what I remember in that movie.
America
it was not about
bad
American
guys.
track and field.
Yeah, Fast Girls. So the reason I like this is that for a few years we would play this on the bus on the way to the conference meet.
Really?
And on the girls' bus. And as cheesy as it is, and as bad as the handoffs for the 4x1 or things like that, it was actually pretty decent by the end. It had a good climactic scene, and a little drama. Not that coaching girls would have any drama ever.
Not at all.
But it had a little bit of that, and so I like it because I have good memories of our team on the way to the conference championship, watching this movie together, kind of team bonding, that kind of stuff. Now we fly because we're a new conference, so we can't watch Fast Girls anymore.
Time.
Maybe we'll have to pull it out sometime and have a little team bonding. But they'll think it's the worst movie ever.
Fast Girls.
Yeah. So number 3 for Cole
Number
Davis.
3, I have McFarlane. So
McFarlane USA.
McFarlane USA. So yeah, Kevin Costner. Speaking of coming back there, but I think the fact that cross country is such a team sport, it's a little bit easier for them to come up with some storylines behind that. My dad said he just went and saw a new movie that they came out.
Overcomer.
Yeah. He said he really liked it.
Yeah.
My dad knows nothing about sports, so. But yeah, McFarland. It's a good story, and I feel like it's easy. Every year when we do our cross country get together, we play that movie when they all hang out and they watch that. So it's kind of the same as kind of what you guys have going on.
Kevin Costner has played almost every sport. Golfer, baseball, cross country coach. He's draft day football. Like he needs to make a let's see, what hasn't he had? A basketball. He needs to be some sort of GM of a basketball team. Or hockey.
Semi-pro.
McFarlane's cool because it's based on a true story.
Yep.
It definitely takes some. It's not exactly
which that's what movies do sometimes.
Yeah. So, but it's pretty well done.
The best thing for the big screen.
So, my number 3 is a movie from around 81 or early 80s called Personal Best, and this is about the story of this is fictionalized, but it has some real scenes in it. But it's about these multi-event athletes, girls that. Are trying to make the Olympic Games in 1980. It ends up being the boycotted Olympics in the United States, so they don't make it, but they go through Olympic trials. and it had some, for the time, very progressive things in it. There was, uh, lesbian love
Right.
affair, and there was coach athlete relationship, and
Ahead of
but
its time.
one of the highlights of it
Mhm.
was Coach Rainbolt is in it for like 2 seconds
No
because
way.
they're showing highlights of the Olympic trials, and he in his pink KU shorts is running the 1500, and you can see these pink KU shorts
That's
anywhere.
awesome.
And so
Shout out to Bolt again.
yeah, Bolt. He doesn't have an IMDb credit, but he was definitely in personal best.
He was an extra.
Yeah, not a great movie, but it's worth it if you're a track and field person.
Right.
Yeah. All right, number 2.
Number 2. So I went with just kind of the underlying running theme in Forrest Gump.
Yeah, I got a little bit of an issue with this.
You have an issue with it?
Yeah, it's not a track and field or running movie.
Well, please tell me a track and field distance runner that hasn't had "Run, Forrest, Run" yelled
Okay.
at them.
You got a point.
You know what I mean? And it's just everybody knows that iconic scene of him running and growing the beard.
I've had that yelled at me, and I'm not a distance
Exactly.
runner. Yeah.
So it's something that every track athlete knows. They might not have even seen Forrest Gump, but they hear the "Run, Forrest, Run." So.
And there's some beautiful cinematography
Yeah.
in that where he's running. And didn't you go to that where I feel like you might have taken a picture maybe.
Yeah,
there.
when he's running down what is it, Monument Valley, Utah.
Yep.
We did the same the scene where he stops and turns around. I recreated that without the beard. I think I'll go home now.
All right, Forrest Gump. We'll give that one to you.
Give me a half credit.
My number 2, which is also a long distance running movie, is called Running on the Sun, and what it is a documentary about the Badwater 135. And so in this movie, it's one of the most difficult races in the world where they run. They start in Death Valley, and they run 135 miles, and they end up thousands of feet above altitude. Death Valley is the lowest point,
right?
And they end up basically climbing straight 135 miles, and it's grueling. I mean, most of the people don't finish. I mean, it's like running a marathon in Qatar or something like that, and so. But it's well done, and it's unbelievably inspirational. It's
like
one of those
40 people.
It makes you feel like you are the laziest piece, crap.
You're like, I am not tough.
Yeah,
that's what makes me think.
The human body can do a lot more than we think it can. So Badwater or Running on the Sun.
Are you going to become an ultra marathoner
Definitely
after
not.
watching that?
Definitely not. I couldn't even be one of the crew people. I wouldn't be able to survive just driving the van along for that long.
Well, you could. You're a driver.
We need some monster.
That's true.
Yeah. Okay. Number 1.
Number 1.
Cole Davis.
Prefontaine.
So.
Not Without Limits.
Not Without, but the Prefontaine.
Prefontaine.
So tell me about why you like Prefontaine over Without Limits.
Out of all of these, I have probably seen it the most. Mm-hmm. I love just kind of the attitude of Prefontaine. I love Jared Leto, the actor. So just all of that combined, like there's some quirky things about the movie, but I remember I bought it when I was, I don't know, probably junior high, and it was on VHS tape, and I still have it. It's in my office right now. So like if kids ever want to watch it, and they're like, Coach, we don't have a VCR. I was like, well, you need to watch this, like look it up. But just kind of the story of Pre and kind of going through that. And everybody, I know you're going to talk about Without Limits, but I'm a Prefontaine guy, and you'll realize why.
Well, I was one of the 14 people that saw Prefontaine in a movie theater.
Really?
Yes, I saw it. It came to Akron, Ohio when I was in Kent, this little local theater, and a bunch of track guys whenever I watched it. And I saw it, and I really liked it. It was really good. And then I saw my number 1, which is Without Limits. And so we're basically both, it's a Steve Prefontaine story.
Right.
And Without Limits is a bigger budget. It's shot at the University of Oregon. I just think it's done a little bit better. I like them both.
Right.
Maybe 1A, 1B, something like that. But
he's not even in your top 5.
Well, you had it already in there. I didn't want to repeat what you were.
You looked at my answers?
I might have.
Okay.
And so, yeah, Without Limits, good. It was a $25 million budget, and it made like $700,000. So obviously the country wasn't that interested. But I think it's one of those that everybody who's a runner, for the most part, except for a very few people, have ever seen.
Like me?
So might be
never seen. I need to watch it.
We're gonna watch it before you leave.
All right.
So a couple of ones that aren't on the list. So Chariots of Fire, which anybody older than me, which is getting up there, usually this is on their list, and it's a great movie. It just Yeah, heck, I think it won Best Picture. I think it was like won a ton of awards, and it's a good movie, but it's long and a little slow nowadays for younger people. And there's one scene that just gets me where this guy's running, and his form to win the race is to throw his head back in the air, open his mouth, and just run as hard as he can. And he seems to win every race by doing that.
Right.
I don't know how that works, but
your athletes don't do that.
Yeah, and I hope they don't. There's a couple that probably do.
Probably.
So. Jericho Mile. It's a great movie about a guy in prison trying to break like the world record in the mile.
Really?
It's from the 70s. If you've never seen.
Have you seen 4 Minute Mile?
Is that the Roger Bannister?
No.
One? Oh, that's a different one.
This is a different. It's like a low budget high school kid wants to get a scholarship movie.
Sounds awesome though.
It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the last one I was gonna mention, if you haven't seen it, is called Endurance. It's about Haile Gebrselassie. It's a movie shot in Africa about his life, and it's not a great movie, but they have all kinds of running scenes of him through Africa. And I just remember that movie for all these beautiful scenes of him just running with, gazelles behind him and things like that.
Is distance running.
It is. There's not a lot of track and field movies.
I know. Why not?
One, what's the one with Omar Epps where he plays a guy on the 4x1 in college. It's Ice Cube's in it. It's a John Singleton movie. I got to think of it. I'll think of it before we get done. Yeah. But there's very few track and field. It's just, race. I guess that would be.
That's like the only one.
Movies, yeah.
I mean, I watched like the I Am Bolt documentary and stuff
that's
like
really
that.
good
It's
too.
a good one.
Yeah,
I thought about throwing that one on there.
Yeah. So, all right. So we're wrapping up first podcast of the year. Want to give special thanks and shout out to the WSU guys. There's Kurt Ryerson and Greg Mathias, Colton Howard, making us look a lot better than we would if we tried to do this ourselves. It would be terrible if we tried to do this without them.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll have some more podcasts coming up. Congratulations to Cole for your coaching career at Friends. I'm assuming it'll continue on somewhere else in whatever school you end up at. They'll be super lucky to have you, and make sure to come back to Wichita and visit us sometime.
Once a year podcast.
Here we go.
There we go.
All right. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you next time.